Good evening, everybody. I'm calling to order our city council meeting for October 17th, 2023 here at City Hall. Would the clerk please confirm the roll?
All council members are present, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. This time we would like to do the flag salute. Jonathan, would you please lead us? Thank you for that. Council, tonight I've got one announcement before we move to the consent agenda. If you'll bear with me here. We have two, I see them both, thank goodness. We have two North Bend police officers that are present with us, and we would like to recognize them at this time so that they're able to get back to their duties. At the October 9th Snoqualmie City Council meeting, two of our North Bend officers were honored with merit awards for life-saving actions. Special thanks are given to Officer Chase Smith for responding to a North Bend business where his quick instincts and the CPR he performed saved the life of a collapsed man. Secondly, special thanks are also given to Officer Austin Gertwin for responding to a North Bend restaurant where his quick actions and the CPR performed saved the life of a man who had been choking. Chief Lynch, do you have a few words you'd like to share?
I do. So often I come before you guys either in committee or in the full council and it's doom and gloom. Here's how much money it's going to cost. Things are getting more expensive, but I take these moments and I cherish them, that I get to kind of gloat on my guys, and I get the outside world to see what I see every day. And that's the level and the caliber of person that we have in uniform for North Bend and Snoqualmie. These guys I would trust with my life, and they have saved lives. These are awards that kind of got lost in the shuffle over the last 3 years. You know, the first one, Officer Smith's incident, was from 2020, and Officer Gutwein's was from 2021. With the pandemic and life, they just kind of got missed, and we're trying to do a better job of recognizing our officers when they do something that is extraordinary. And on those days, what these guys did, it was extraordinary. They gave somebody a second chance to be around longer. And if they had failed to act, or if they had acted slowly that day and not put themselves second to what they were doing, it could have been a tragic outcome. So I would just like to thank each one of them, and I'm glad that we get an opportunity to bring them before you guys so they can get the recognition that they deserve.
Thank you very much. Council, I'm more than sure that one or more of you have something to say. Mr. Godhealth.
Yeah, that's a good start. That's a perfect way. I just want to say thank you. I know that it's not always a thankful job. We appreciate what you do, and I'm sure you guys do all kinds of heroic things all the time. It's nice that we can honor you for something that's maybe a little above and beyond, but thank you for all you do for this community. It's a thankless job, and we appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah. You two gentlemen show extraordinary gifts to all of us every day. This is one of those moments where we get to celebrate you for saving lives, which is the toughest thing in the world, to be able to get out there every day to do just that. You follow your guts, you follow your heart, your skill set. We are honored to have you here, and I'm sure the people that you save the lives from are thanking you every day of their life. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Wonderful. This is fantastic. And thank you, Chief, for bringing this forward, because you're right. A lot of good that you do for our community gets lost in the shuffle. and taking extra steps to really bring it forward and say, hey, we're more than just an agency that you hire to drive around and make sure you're safe. There are a lot of benefits that we add to your community. You add tremendous value to our community. So I thank you both for your efforts, and thank you for being here, and thank you for what you've done. This is amazing.
Mr. Rosen.
Yeah, just want to thank you. I'm sure I can't thank you enough as much, or certainly not as much as the two community members who wouldn't be with us if it wasn't for you. So thank you, as you said, giving them a second chance at life. There's nothing more precious. Thank you so, so much.
Ms. Cullen.
As a first responder myself, I have to say, I know that you go in and you say, this is my job, this is what I'm trained to do, and I do it. But also I'm sure there's times that you respond and you don't get the results that you got those 2 times. So that's amazing. And those people are grateful. We're grateful that you did it. Your training has paid off, and we're so lucky that you were there when you were there and it happened. So thank you.
Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, just to echo Councilmember Colin, and right, thank you so much. We're all grateful as a community and a council. Thank you, Chief.
All right. Thank you for that indulgence. Thank you. Be safe out there tonight and all nights. Next item on our agenda, council, is the consent agenda. Can I get a motion?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. It is unanimous. We'll move to citizen comments. This is the time which you, if you are here in chambers with us tonight or online and wish to make a comment on an item not on tonight's agenda, this is the time for that. We will start here in chambers and then move online. You will get up to 3 minutes to speak, starting with your name and address for the record. I see one moving forward to the podium already. Online, we'll call upon you after we go through the council chambers. Michael, long time no see.
Sure. Hey, Mike Thomas, 1231 La Forest. Long time no see. Thank you, council members, mayor, and those present. I'm ever reminded of the importance of water. I would also, the city certainly remains in its water restriction stage 3. I check the river every day, and amazingly, even with all these rains, any drop taking from Centennial today would have required mitigation. The city has also been under the stage 3 limit at Masonry Pool, which of course is very interesting actually for 6 weeks. It'll be interesting to see this year's data, to see how a tough year survives. It could have been even tougher from what I see. In fact, I was even received memos from Seattle Public Utilities that an extra foot was allowed to be added to Chester Morse this year because conditions were viewed to be poor. Unfortunately, they also overfilled it, which requires additional monitoring, and that's a safety factor for example, the box leak rollout. I view the water conservation ordinance and its restrictions are hypocrisy. When we don't have water for our gardens, for our trees, to reduce fire risks, and yet there's no restrictions on development, it's a hypocrisy to me. We have no curtailment of development. And this is my opinion going forward on development, and it always has been. When there's no water for our gardens, for our trees, and for our enjoyment of our own private properties, there should be no water for development, which means opposing things, perhaps very loved projects like the Aquatic Center. And it's unfortunate. That concerns me greatly. For certainly things like that, not only require water for a pool, require massive amounts of waters for showering and toileting. That facility appears to be massively oversubscribed. So I would think of that when you start to think of things like the pool, the amount of water that it needs, and the insult it is to people who enjoyed using their watering for their gardens and for their trees when you allow things like this. Additionally, when I listen to this proposal around the Aquatic Center, and I note we have a Skyview Parks Commissioner, Mr. Mark Jocelyn, in his capacity as Skyview Commissioner. I view the proposal as substantially out of date in terms of its capacity and what it needs to use. I further would make a request I believe that there is potential for let me phrase it, a difference of interest. And I would ask Mr. Jocelyn to recuse himself from matters involving Sideview Parks and that facility and any city council decision around, let's say, for example, concessions, not meeting certain stormwater codes, waiving certain fees, traffic impact fees. I think this is a problem. Even though it's a very loved and very important nonprofit, I think it's important that we remain clear of differences of interest. Which hat are people wearing when they vote here? That's very important to me. Thank you for your consideration. This concludes my comment.
Good timing. Thank you. Jean, another person
Thank
we've
you.
not seen for a while. Welcome.
It's been a while. It sure has. And thank you. My name is Jean Buckner. I live at 46226 Southeast 139th Place. And I'm here to talk a bit about the National Guard. One of the reasons that the Inner Bay project folks decided they wanted to move the National Guard was to get it away from encroaching neighborhoods as well. And so my question is, if the Inner Bay folks wanted to move the National Guard because they were concerned about neighborhoods, isn't North Bend concerned about the neighborhoods that are right around the existing property where they're planning to put the National Guard? We understand, and I have documentation as to this, that there will be a Chinook helicopter landing pad, that there will be a weapons and munitions depot. And I've asked a few times what the blast zone is of that particular munitions depot with no answers. I'm very concerned. There's also a parking lot for 6,700 and some odd vehicles and pieces of equipment. These vehicles do not have to abide by clean air standards like the rest of us do because the military has an exemption. So they also have to wash and maintain these vehicles. I'm concerned about stormwater retention. You know, we do have a stormwater issue here in North Bend. And I just don't see how that type of facility is appropriate to be that close to neighborhoods, to motel, the truck stop. Salal wells are right out there. The truck stop well is right there. So I ask you to think about that before you move forward with requests for additional funding from the state. Also, the facility will require the same amount of water that's required by 399 homes. And when you add that 399 ERUs, how much longer are North Bend residents going to be expected to extend that water conservation ordinance, not being able to water their gardens or their shrubbery or what have you? I live in Wood River, and as you know, we've got a lot of big trees, and we're right on the east side. The fire, if it's coming over the mountains, they're going to hit us first. We like to keep our yards green and lush. I'm not going to get into grass. I'm much more interested in shrubs and trees than grass. I don't want to discuss that, but shrubs and trees, we've got to water those things, or it's a fire hazard, in my opinion. So my question too is, why would the city council approve $13 million for additional infrastructure? And I didn't know about this coming. I mean, we were told 3 million's coming from the state, and now we hear about another 13 million. So I'm concerned about that.
Thank you, Jean. Anyone else here in chambers? You? Council, I'm going to pre-announce that this is your SCA president this year, and a good friend, Mayor Enumclaw, Jan Molinaro.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. My name is Jan Molinaro. I'm the mayor of City of Enumclaw, but I'm here tonight as your Sound Cities Association president. And I do want to talk to you about 3 different items. First of all, I do want to thank the city of North Bend for being one city out of 38 as a member and participating in Sound Cities. Your continued partnership is valued, and you have a voice in the region through SCA. Secondly, if you haven't already, I would encourage you to attend an SCA networking event. We just happen to have one coming up October 25th. That's not why I'm here, but it just coincides. The topic is going to be called Calling BS, Skepticism in the Data-Driven World. It's a UW prof that I believe is going to be talking about that. If you can't make that one, we will be having our annual meeting the first week in December. So I hope you can try to attend one of these. It's not only a great opportunity to listen to some good speakers, but it's also a good opportunity to mingle with other elected officials as well as with our business partners that help financially support SCA. Thirdly, I'd like for you to consider, I know there's a couple of you here on the North Bend board that are currently serving on regional boards and commissions. You know, the SCA has 27 different regional boards and commissions that we can appoint to, such as the Regional Transit Committee, Puget Sound Regional Council, Affordable Housing. That's just naming a few. This is your opportunity to impact the region as well as your city. And we are accepting nomination application forms until November 13th. And if you are serving now and your term expires, you do need to apply again. So it's not an automatic renewal. And if I am available for any communication, just go to cityofenumclaw.net, N-E-T. I don't know how we got that, but that's where we're at. Go to the mayor and find my email, and you can certainly communicate with any issues that's on your mind. And I thank you for this evening, and I wish you well.
Jan, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. And council, you did get an email earlier today, I believe it was from Dave, about the application process. The Mayor Pro Tem and I will also be getting information to you about that and our suggestions for application. Next.
Hello, Deborah Landers, 14615 438th Avenue Southeast. First of all, I just wanted to tell you that I'm here to thank the entire city of North Bend for our successful Art Off the Rails Festival in September. So it was the first one. We feel really good about it. We had somewhere between 450 and 600 people coming throughout the day. It did rain, so things slowed down in the afternoon. Really appreciated those of you that were able to come out and enjoy the festival. But even more, I appreciate the background support that I got from the city of North Bend. I feel like I talked to and got advice and help from every single department in the city of North Bend. So thank you all for that. It really did take a lot of education for us to pull off a festival. So it was a success. We are planning to do it again next year. I'll work with Danny Coakley and see how it worked for him having it on the same day as the Blues Festival. And with that, I wanted to share our next event, which is Artist Sunday on November 26th. So for those of you that don't know about Artist Sunday, it's a national event started about 5 years ago. It starts with a database of artists throughout the country, categorized by the state and the city that they live in, and then by the type of art they do. So it gives them a chance to advertise on a national level. And then feeding off of Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, Artist Sunday is the Sunday after Thanksgiving. So last year, to celebrate Artist Sunday, we had a very small Artist Sunday event at the train depot, which was super fun, but it was small. This year, we're negotiating with the Outlet Mall. It looks like, I don't have a firm contract yet, but it does look like they're going to provide a space of 6,000 square feet. So we're going to have a lot of artists and we're going to have music and it's going to be fun. So put November 26th on your calendar because it will be fun. And that's all I have to say today, unless you have questions.
Thank you, Deb.
Thanks.
Anyone else here in chambers? Seeing none, do we have anyone online?
No one at this time.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to commission and committee reports. We'll start with Council Member Miller, Community Economic Development.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Today we had CED, which is Community and Economic Development Committee meeting here in the German room at 3:30. We had 5 items on our agenda. let's see, Brian Kearney presented, and he had a race in town. You might have seen it this weekend on Saturday at Torgerson Park, and it was the first of its kind. We're hoping to see more of that, but he presented what it was about, how many people showed up, who was involved, how many vendors. It was a really interesting presentation because he showcased the amount of talent that is around the area that was inspired to come and race a 30K, and some of the most elite runners in the country came to do that. There was an 8K with a local winner. And anyway, he inspired us and taught us a lot about what the hope of continued success and unique and driving force events that are coming in the future. So he wants to make this a yearly thing. So that was a pleasure to have him. Next, we had To the Mountains, a presentation of To the Mountains Shuttle. This was given to us by the owner and operator, Meg, who inspired me at least, and I'm sure other council members at the table, about the story of how she came up with an idea during the pandemic and then went with it. And this shuttle is growing pretty quickly. It has, I think she had 4 buses that can carry up to 50 people, and everything from mini buses to smaller 14 passenger buses that can pick you up, take you to the mountains, take you biking, take you all over the region and to different events. So she'd like to know and work more closely with North Bend. There's great hope that we can do something economically, but we'll keep in touch with her. So it was great to have her. We talked about, let's see, a survey discussion. We went into that at a deep detail. We also had Rob Watton from Snoqualmie Valley Economic Alliance, and he gave us an introduction to what that's about. It's very exciting. The comp plan update grant of $62,500. We got some information about that from Rebecca Deming. And I think that's it for now, but we'll meet again next month on November 23rd.
Thank you. Mr. Godhealth, Finance and Administration.
Thank you. It's going to be a quick one. Finance and Administration meeting was canceled because we did it at our work study, all this stuff for the budget. So that's a quick one.
Save your powder.
If you want me, I can go into the next one if you want, because.
Well, let's roll on. Let's.
All right, let's.
There, East Side
Yeah.
Fire and Rescue.
No, this is public health and safety since Mr. Rosen didn't attend. So isn't that next?
Oh,
I'm actually following your instructions.
geez,
here.
you're going down the lit.
Yeah,
You're Mr. Rosen?
I'm Mr. Rosen today because he did not make that meeting. So yeah. you can
Okay.
do that.
Public Health and Safety.
Yes, so we discussed the 2024 SCORE jail service contract that we'll discuss a little bit more. It's on our agenda tonight. We also discussed the Sunnyside jail service contract for long-term services, or for our people who have to stay longer. Pleasantly enough, that was a wonderful price. It was lower than it would cost us, so that was a positive. We got a wonderful police update from Chief Lynch, and then a fire update from Deputy Chief Hahn.
Now you want to pause? All right. Okay, well, we got Public Health Safety. Let's move to Transportation Public Works. Back to Miss Miller. We're just keep it all at this end of the table tonight.
Well, I find this fascinating because I think I read the same thing last month, September 26th. So Mark, I just looked at this. We were talking about RE program. I think I said this all last month. Is that possible? Anyone remembers on the table? Because our next meeting is this next week.
There you go.
But I can read through this whole thing again if you'd like. I can happy to update.
All right. We won't ask you to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, how about Miss Colin for Mayor Pro Tem's report?
So we had 2 work studies in this last month. On September 26th, we had an introduction to the housing and land use element. This included some information on what North Bend is required to plan for and accommodate housing that is affordable to all economic segments of the community. On October 10th, we had a work study and we had a presentation by Drew Boda, our new finance director. He discussed the mid-biennium budget review. Mayor McFarland discussed human and community services funding review. And we looked at human services grant request and community service grant. Same thing, request. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we'll go back to Mr. Godhealth again for East Side Fire and Rescue.
Well, Eastside Fire and Rescue Let's do this. Eastside Fire and Rescue Board meeting was October 12th, 2023. On our agendas were basically agreeing to Norcom's pricings, a discussion of our operating expense for mid-biennium amendment, and then equipment fund replacement mid-biennium amendment, same things we'll be seeing here. We also had an agenda bill that for the mid-biennium for the capital facilities and maintenance. The chief's briefing, let me get that up here too. Discussed Mercer Island. The East Side Fire and Rescue Integration Team continues to make good progress. Promotional interviews were completed by both battalion chief and the lieutenant, resulting in 1 BC and 3 lieutenant promotions. We're in the middle of a cycle of looking for entry level. Interviews are going starting October 9th. There were scheduled over 300 candidates that came through the hiring. There was a discussion about the pilot program that's gone countywide. Dr. Ray endorsed the program of the Leave Behind locks and kits. On October 26th, in partnership with King County Councilman Sarah Perry, Eastside Fire and Rescue will be hosting a roundtable discussions on this challenge and risk of battery energy storage systems. On September 30th, staff participated in an evacuation drill in Carnation. Several items were identified on how to improve that process. It was also discussed that Emergency Manager Andrew Stevens has stepped away from the agency to pursue another opportunity. EM Stevens was instrumental in setting up and running one of the region's mass vaccination sites, and our community will be ever thankful. For those people who might remember him, he was also involved in when we had Snowmageddon out here, and we needed some support at our EOC. He came to help us. So I think he worked with Mark Regis at that point too. So Mark knows Andrew. And that's about it.
Thank you very much. Ms. Deming, commissions.
Thank you. The Planning Commission has not met since our last commission report. They will next meet tomorrow, October 18th, for an introduction to the requirements of our housing element of the comprehensive plan. Staff will also introduce the anticipated updates for the economic development element of the comprehensive plan. The following Planning Commission meeting is scheduled for November 15th. The Parks Commission met September 27th to review and make a recommendation on the recreation and open space plans associated with Ichijo subdivision in coordination with staff and planning for the city's annual recognition of Arbor Day, which was held October 7th at EJ Roberts Park. They will next meet November 15th to discuss their anticipated work program for 2024. On September 26th, the Economic Development Commission met and approved to forward the draft economic development element to the Planning Commission for inclusion in the updated comprehensive plan. The EDC will its scheduled next meeting is for October 24th. Thank you.
Thank you. Regional reports. Mr. Jocelyn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I attended the K4C Climate Action elected officials work session on October 12th. It was held in person at the Arctic Building on the King County campus in downtown Seattle. It was well attended. There was a presentation on funding and scaling climate action, state and local partnerships led by Mike Fong, the director of the Washington State Department of Commerce. There's significant amounts of money that have been made available for all sorts of things to attempt to mitigate climate impacts going forward. Similarly, there was an excellent presentation, 2024 K4C State Climate Legislative Interests, presented by Beth Doglio in the State Chamber in Olympia. She's the chair of the House Environment and Energy Committee, and similarly, significant amounts of funding and money is available. It is striking, I will say, the depth and breadth of considerations that she ran through, from energy storage systems in residential neighborhoods and their zoning and regulation to the grid and moving power around, such that as we all are anxious and to work towards moving towards electrification, there needs to be electricity, you know. And it's good to know that folks are paying attention. Washington State continues to be a leader. I believe that's true, and I was pleased to be able to participate. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have a regional report? I'll just share with you, Council, the PSRC Executive Board was mostly just reports this past meeting. We had a report from the Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Washington State Ferries, talking about the ferry system and its role in transportation network here in the Sound region. We also had a PSRC Safety Summit where staff discussed with the Executive Board draft scope of work for the development of the regional safety plan. And then the PSRC Director of Communications and Government Relations briefed the Executive Board on the development of the legislative agenda. And so not any action items there. All right. And with that, we'll move to the regular agenda introductions. Item number 5. AB 23-124. This is a motion authorizing an ILA with SCORE for jail services. Interim Chief Lynch, where'd you go? There you are.
I remember that doom and gloom I was always bringing to you. I couldn't come here with just good news. Exactly. So what we're seeing is that SCORE jail is in a it's in a every year we're getting a 3% increase on what we're having to pay to house our inmates and CTAC. So we were notified a couple months ago that this starting in January of 2024 that the overall prices were going to go up by 3%. And when we looked at that and we pulled the contract, the North Bend City Clerk actually found that an error had been made on the previous contract from last year, and the end date was put to the contract would die December 31st of this year instead of making it a 2-year contract, what it should have been. So that's why we had to bring it back to you as an agenda bill and to extend for another year. But by doing so, I just wanted to go over some of the numbers so everybody knows and what 3% looks like. So the 2024 rates for the daily non-guaranteed rate, that is the rate that we use. We do not have guaranteed beds at SCORE jail. Only the 5 or 6 entity agencies that made SCORE jail have guaranteed beds at this time. And now King County has guaranteed beds as well. So that goes from $199 a day to $204.97. The biggest increase was the booking fee, which is now $50, will go up to $65. So every time we book somebody, it's going to be an extra $15 from what it was this year. Where we get hit with astronomical prices is the mental health acute beds and the medical beds. And we're in 2024. If somebody needs to be housed at SCORE jail and is exhibiting mental health issues where they have to have a mental health bed, which is the majority of the people that we take there, we're going to be paying $286.34 a night. We don't go to SCORE first. We always try to put our inmates into Issaquah jail, which is a cheaper jail. But a lot of times they won't take our people because of the medical issues, because of the mental issues, and we have to go to CTAC to put them in at SCORE. I'll give you a number, and I pulled these numbers this afternoon. So these are up to date as of the end of September, from January to September. The city of North Bend has paid $84,189 to SCORE jail. A 3% increase, if those same numbers occurred next year, would be an additional $2,525.67. We had three really bad months this year. We had January where we had $17,000 bill. February was a $13,000 bill, and then June was our highest at $18,000. The reasons for these high costs are extended stays. These are not people that we arrest for a DUI on a Friday and they get booked in and they get released on Monday when they see the judge. These are people that are deemed by the court to be a continued threat to society. So they are held at a high bail until their case is adjudicated and they're not able to get out. Or they're ones that go to court, go to trial, they plea a deal, and they get sentenced to months in jail. So the court says we have to hold them, we have to hold them. And right now, we don't have anywhere else to put them. You guys voted in on the consent agenda, the new Sunnyside contract, which I thank you so much for, because I'm excited to see how this is going to shake out with the savings. We're talking $204.97 a night compared to if they will take one of our persons that are in custody for an extended period of time, it would be $60 a night until January 1st, and it goes up 5%, so $63. So we're talking a huge savings. So those are the numbers. If I remind you that I have, since the beginning of summer, put out a directive that we are only booking mandatory arrests. The mandatory arrests are for DVs, domestic violence assaults. We have no choice. We shall book them. And then there are certain DUIs that are mandatory arrests as well. The majority of the people that are getting booked are booked on warrants with high bail over $5,000. Ones that we've arrested, we've given them a criminal citation and given them a court date, and then they fail to show up. And then they get contacted by the police at another jurisdiction or our own, and we confirm the warrant and they go to jail, and then the judge would like to see them. So they sit and they stay on that bail until the end of their court proceedings. So that is what I have for you. I'd be happy to answer any questions if I can. $84,000 is a lot of money. So that was, I tried to look at it like I spoke to Councilmember Rosen earlier. You know, it means that those people are not on the streets that could have been released. And I do believe that the court's doing a good job in Issaquah by maintaining custody of people that deserve to be in jail.
Okay, thank you. Please hang with us. Council, any clarifying questions for Brian before we move to public comment? Clarifying, Ms. Cullen.
So $84,000, about how many people is that?
That's less than 20.
And what is the normal length of stay?
The normal length of stay, if you're not there for a sentence, would be probably 3 to 4 days. And then they see the judge, they're released, they're given a new court date. They're sent to a program to follow up on. If they don't show back up, another warrant will come out. And then the more times that happens, the judge is not inclined to let them go the next time.
And to add to that, there's probably not a normal, but what is the average per crime that gets them placed in the jail?
I'm not sure if I understand. So
I guess I'm saying, is it domestic violence, DUI? What is the majority of the crimes that get them placed in jail?
Well, as of the beginning of the summer, we're not putting in theft 3rd degree. We're not putting in any malicious mischief, which is vandalism. If it's a first-time offense, we are not putting people in jail for crimes that don't require them to be booked. So I usually see a booking email come through at least once or twice a day. We're still making arrests for warrants, DUIs, and domestic violence assaults. So it's happening daily.
Okay, Mr. Jocelyn.
Yeah, the cost difference is striking. It for me raises a small concern as to the health and well-being of the prisoners, if you will, if that's the proper language. And does the city do any or have any obligation to follow up? I see in the contract that, of course, the provider is held to, not violate state and federal law and so forth. And there's some protections in there, but they're transferred, and is there any reporting back or looking after of or follow up on the treatment of the folks who we are incarcerating?
Yeah, well, when we book somebody into jail, they become the custody of the Issaquah jail and the Issaquah court staff or the SCORE jail staff. They will call us if there are medical issues, and we have to send an officer down to pick them up and take them to a hospital. We take them to dentist office. We go down and take them to doctor's office. There's a lady that has had extensive medical issues at SCORE, and we pick her up twice a week to go to a doctor's appointment. That's on us. We get to do that. For the most part, there's no follow-up as far as the police department goes. The court is the one that has jurisdiction over long-term follow-up with programs. They're able to hold them accountable for when they don't follow through. When they're released and they're back out here, then we have our mental health professional that does follow up on certain cases. She carries a caseload of about 20 people weekly that she's following up on, that we have arrested, that are out, and we're trying to reduce the amount of times that we come in contact with them.
Thank you. Thank you even for that little bit of insight into what you deal with every day. Thanks.
Any of Mr. Rosen?
What would it take to also, I guess, put away folks for theft and things like that? What do you need direction from a city, or is this a just internal policy decision the police have made?
It would be an increase in jail budget. It would be an increase in court budgets. We would have to have the court's backing to be able to process that many cases. Like right now, it's when we look at what is humane, are we going to put somebody in jail for shoplifting a small amount? And a small amount in this state is under $250. We have shoplifts though that are like, we had a $40,000 loss over at the outlet mall recently.
Is that something you would put someone away for, or would decline?
That rises to the felony level. So it does not have to go to we only book for, that rule is for misdemeanors, gross misdemeanors only. If we can find that the King County Court will take, or the King County Jail will take them, then, because there's been a lot of times that they've been on divert, they've had, COVID is back. So there's times when the jail will only go to mandatory bookings in Seattle. But we will book felonies.
And auto theft, is that included?
That would be a felony.
Okay.
And however, I've been in front of you before about the frustrations with trying to file an auto theft case, to the point where we had to pass an ordinance to put them into misdemeanor jail to hold them accountable. So those are the ones that, for the vehicle trespass that you guys helped me pass. We've been using that. Those are ones that usually they're clustered with a bunch of other cases, a bunch of other charges. And at that point, they'll have warrants. They're going to go to jail anyway, and we'll just, we'll end up giving them a ticket for the new crime.
And then just last question, is there any evidence that is a benefit to a community of prosecuting lower levels of theft and crime, that over time that would discourage that behavior in a community? I'm thinking also kind of the outlet mall getting hit so often, sending a message that this is maybe not the best place for that type of crime.
I think that I would be able to give you my opinion on this, and because I wouldn't be able to pull raw data right now. But I know the broken window theory, and that if you leave windows broken downtown, it's going to invite a certain element that will commit crime. I believe that there should be people that, if you break the law, you go to jail. That's the way that everybody in this room was raised. When you were taught when you were a kid, you're going to go to jail if you break the law. It's not that way in the real world. There are times when it's not appropriate to put somebody in jail on a case. If we go to the Safeway, which we have before, and somebody is shoplifting food to feed a family, we're not gonna put them in jail. Okay, they will be held accountable. We'll give them a ticket. They'll have to go to court and it'll be adjudicated through the court. But the repeat offenders, the ones that come from outside of our neighborhoods and come to the outlet mall daily to do theft on a large scale, we're not talking a misdemeanor of $250. I mean, they will walk into a sunglass hut and take $10,000 worth of sunglasses at a time. You know, we had a guy that over the course of 3 months during the summer hit the Nike outlet for $40,000. We were able to track him down, figure out who he was, and he has been charged. They don't stay in jail. We put them in jail for the felony and they're released pretty quickly.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Seeing no more, we'll move to public comment.
Thank you.
If there's anyone here in chambers or online wishing to speak on this agenda item, you're here in chambers, please move to the podium. Online, please indicate in the chat box or by *9. You'll be called upon. See nobody rushing to the podium here in chambers. Do we have anyone online?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you very much. This item came through Public Health and Safety, but Mr. Rosen, were you going to make the motion?
Motion to approve AB 23-124, authorizing the mayor to execute an interlocal agreement with SCORE for jail services in a form and content acceptable to the city attorney.
I have a
Second.
Second by Mr. Godhelf and Mr. Rosen, anything to add?
Thank you, Chief, for your answers. I will also say again, what I said to you privately, the $82,000 in cost in jail services for this year. I'm going to go glass half full. That's 20 individuals possibly that are off our streets and hopefully some crime that is not being committed. And I'm sure there's some residents that will sleep through the night and not have to be woken in the middle of the night because of it. So thank you. And I appreciate the efforts. So continue doing what you do. You guys do a great job. We appreciate it. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Rosen. Mr. Godhelf, anything to add?
Yeah, just, we have no choice. It's something we have to do. I just thought it was important for us to see what those costs are and get an understanding and have this discussion. I think he's done a good job of trying to find alternatives, which was a Sunnyside Jail Services contract. I do have a concern moving forward based on King County saying they want to close their jail, which would be another hit to us. And I think that's the biggest problem is there's not a lot of jails out there and they seem to be going away pretty quickly. So at some point, we're not sure where we're gonna have them. We might have to build a jail here like we had at the other one. So I don't know.
Thank you. Council, anyone else? Seeing none, the motion before you is to approve AB 23-124, authorizing the mayor to execute an interlocal agreement with SCORE for jail services in a form and content acceptable to the city attorney. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries and it is unanimous. Thank you very much, council. Moving on, item number 6 on your agenda is AB 23-125. This is a resolution adopting the 6-year capital improvement plan for 2024 to 2029. Mr. Regos.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Page 41 in your packet. This is the first reading of our 6-year capital improvement plan. And we adopt the CIP every 2 years is what we strive to do. And there are several benefits of the city having a 6-year CIP. It's a management tool for the city council and city staff. It provides valuable information to the planning commission, citizens, developers, and businesses interested in the development of the city. It assists in leveraging available resources through improved timing of projects and improved coordination of city projects with those of private and other public entities. And it shows how projects are being funded. And it also helps to protect a city's infrastructure and to plan for new infrastructure. So in front of you within the packet is a CIP map. We also have project narrative that shows projects in our key areas of transportation, pavement management, parks, water, sewer, storm drainage, flood, and some miscellaneous capital projects. So those are briefly described in your packet. Like I said, we have a map, and then we have a detailed spreadsheet that I've updated. Those costs are not exact. They are estimates in some cases, and really helpful to show what years those projects are targeted for. And those costs include estimated design costs and construction costs. And there's a breakdown for the local amount, also for federal, state, King County, and the other is grants, is anticipated grants. Not all of them will hit. We will get some grants, we won't get others. And this project is really just a planning document. So we won't do all of these projects in the next 6 years, but we would like to do a lot of them. So it's a planning document. It's a guide for us at the city, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, before we move to questions, and again, council, right now, we would just be doing clarifying questions before we turn to public comment. I would ask, since this is fairly long, there's a map involved as well as the pages of the document. If you are asking clarifying question, please let us know what page number of the package you're on. And if it's a particular item number, it's item number. So again, clarifying right now. Ms. Miller?
Mark, just a quick clarification on page. Okay, I don't even know what the number of this is. This one, so it's one of three, spreadsheet 1 of 3. U-045 National Guard Readiness Center Water Main Extension Booster Station and Reservoir. Under 2025, the number is 13 million. Can you explain to us where that money is coming from?
So that particular project needs to be grant funded. We cannot do that project all by ourselves. So there's a potential state appropriation in the future. There's also a potential Department of Defense grant that the city would be eligible for funding for. There is also contribution from the existing property owner, Puget Western. And I have new information since this document was prepared a couple weeks ago. Like I said, it's a living and breathing document that the National Guard project has been pushed out a couple more years. So that $13 million number will move into the future a couple of years.
Thank you very much for that.
You, anyone else clarifying? Seeing none, we'll move to public comment. So if you're here in chambers or online and wish to speak to this agenda item, please move to the podium. And we'll start here in council chambers and then move online after that. As usual, you'll have up to 3 minutes, starting with your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Council. Mike Thomas, 1231 LaForest. I'd like to thank the 2 council people that reached out to me for some questions and concerns on AB 23-125. And I may talk a little about 126, I'll leave it to the chair. These 2 items are related because the next item is to approve lobbying efforts for the Armory facility. I echo the concerns around item U-045. And the last time this came up was September 20th, 2022, where a really obscenely tall water tower was posited. Now, perhaps that's changed, but it's alarming to me to seize this proposal for a couple of reasons. One, the city walked away from that plan, which was the amendment to its 2020 WSP, and instead pursued the Inter-Iowa Law, which it later successfully executed and obtained $3 million in state funding. I'm very concerned about this because when does this stop? So y'all told Senator Mullet and a few other people $3 million is enough to solve this problem. Salal seems like it should be able to serve this facility. It has reservoirs and storage near there. It already has facilities and infrastructure, and that's quite puzzling to me. So what are that 3 million? Are you now handling a bill for 13 more million or 13.6? Kind of a credibility issue in my mind. I also feel some other technical issues with it. Again, Salal, I think, is in the best geographic position to serve it. But does this also say things like duplication of facilities? running a main 2 miles down North Bend Way all the way to to the facility or even perhaps even further. Just seems to me reeks of duplication of facilities. You'll also have an intertie that you have to build, which has a booster station. This has a booster station in it. This is seems to me quite strange. If you just, thrown into question what should be done on the intertie. I think this is a real important question. I think also how this is paid for, and I'll tell more about this on 126. There's a couple other things that caught my eye in this, and I know this is the first reading. Found it unusual that the stormwater, certain items like the decant facility and the project to treat about 100 acres worth of impervious surface area do not have figures attached. That concerns me from like a stormwater monthly charges and also environmental impacts. Are you really able to treat stormwater? And we've been knowing this for a long time in King County Code that more stringent stormwater is coming. So on the environmental front for water, do we have a whole new front to protect our area from stormwater pollution? That we protect the river, not only from inappropriate taking and mitigation, but also stormwater problems where runoff and other things go straight into the river. Again, the lack of numbers there was really disturbing. Is there a giant problem for development? And please let me finish, in terms of the cost for growth and how to pay for the environmental and infrastructure things needed to enable that growth. Thank you much, and I thank you for the extra time.
Thank you.
I'll be very brief this time. Just wanted to say that
You'll need to start with name and address.
again, okay.
Thank you.
Jean Buckner, 46226 Southeast 139th Place. I just wanted to say that I question the idea of spending additional money and even spending money on lobbying the state to secure additional money for a facility that is tax exempt. This is a federal facility. We will not be able to recoup investment from taxes on this facility. And therefore, why are we doing this? I really don't understand the basic idea of why the city has historically pushed this facility when there's no tax base improvement from it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here in chambers? Anyone online?
No one at this time.
Thank you. This would have come through Transportation and Public Works. Ms. Miller, can I get a motion?
Yeah, absolutely, and did indeed, of course. Let's see, motion to approve AB 23-125, approving as a first and final resolution. I'm sorry, as a first reading, a resolution adopting the city's 2024-2029 6-year capital improvement plan and setting a second and final reading for the November 21st, 2023 city council meeting.
You do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Rosen. Ms. Miller, you have anything to add?
This is a planning document and it provides just that, the information that we need to see where projects are how they're being funded. So it's not written in stone. So that there's movable pieces to this. So going into the future, just to remind everybody out there that this is a planning document, just like that.
Thank you. Mr. Rosen?
Yeah, I'll follow up on Ms. Miller's comments. This is also the appropriate time to start to voice your concerns. These documents start here and they take on a life of their own. So I appreciate you being here, whether I agree or disagree. This is the time and the place. Continue to email your council members, talk to those in the community if you have concerns with these projects, and let us know. As we know, this is just a first reading. Other than that, I say we proceed tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, anyone else? Seeing none. Motion to approve. I'm sorry, did I miss somebody? Ms. Miller?
Just wanted to thank both individuals that stepped up tonight to speak to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, motion before you is to approve AB 23-125, approving as a first reading, a resolution adopting the city's 2024 to 2029 six-year capital improvement plan and setting a second and final reading for November 21st, 2023 city council meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries and it is unanimous. Item 7 on your agenda is AB 23-126. This is a motion. The 2024 legislative agenda. Mr. Miller.
Yes, council and mayor. This has come before you as a result of a request by SCA to approach all of the Sound Cities membership and ask them for their legislative priorities. So we're bringing you a list of things that have come up in the administration's discussion, and many of these have come up in council discussions as well. So we're bringing you a list to transmit to SCA. They, of course, represent member agencies with AWC and do their own lobbying efforts with the state legislature to try to address these issues. And that's the way we get our voice heard at that level. Those items that we have placed on this list, and I'm going to mention a few that the mayor has brought to my attention in addition to these are: number one, REIT funding flexibility, particularly for existing REIT and affordable housing. As you know, you can pass a voter amendment adding a third REIT program. We have two currently, and that third REIT program can be dedicated totally to affordable housing. But at present, we have the ability to access REIT 2 funds for public infrastructure only. And we want to be able to have that loosened up, and the legislature has talked this year about coming back next year and making that more robust and more flexible so we can access those funds for affordable housing. The second item is allowing private accounting firms to conduct the state audit. One of the things we've run into is that the state gets way behind on their auditing. They take a long time to get through your books when they're here. And this would allow licensed CPAs to give them a hand and kind of get their backlog out of the way and get some of this work done for us. The third is funding in general for affordable housing, and we've had robust discussions on that. The fourth is water infrastructure funding for the Army Readiness Center as a project of statewide concern. Obviously, the benefits of that are regional, and they apply to more than just this community. So we are convinced that that is something that would benefit all folks in this county with respect to snow removal, earthquakes, floods, wildfire, things where these folks are needed to help us. So it is a statewide concern, and there are benefits other than tax base. The fifth is sewer collection funding to convert residential neighborhoods on septic to treatment so that we have a more environmentally sensitive groundwater program that isn't totally the responsibility of the residents to fund. In discussions with the mayor, he pointed out that we also believe the council is supportive of AWC priority asks, which are help recruit and retain police officers for public safety, and secondly, provide funding support for behavioral health services. And we have been successful to an extent with the behavioral health and getting one person funded in the police department for 2 years, but that funding will be over at the end of that 2 years, and we're looking for continued assistance there. So that's the status of the list. If there are other items that council feels are important to add to it as we communicate with AWC, be happy to do that, and happy for your consideration of these items as well.
Thank you. So clarifying questions for Mr. Miller. Mr. Rosen.
Number 5, sewer. Can you elaborate on that? I have some concerns there, but I'd just like to know exactly what you're looking to do there.
Well, one of the things we faced, we have some large neighborhoods that are currently on septic. And obviously the environmentally superior conditions to treat the wastewater and not to put it into the groundwater. And if we can get funding at either the state or federal level to help convert those areas with installing a collection system and help defraying the costs of getting sewer treatment in, We think that's a more preferable way to do it than to go out and have people tax themselves to do it. So this is just to provide additional funding to help with converting to wastewater treatment.
I'll leave it there for now till we get to the question.
Mr. Elwood.
So could you expand on to help people convert to sewer and what you mean by that? Because, you know, I'm just curious where we talk about more environmentally safe and environmentally friendly. Just, you know, where's the science on that and what are you planning to do with the funds? Is this like, okay, Silver Creek neighbors, we've got some money and now we're going to use that to either pay for the sewer altogether, or now we're going to try to get you to join sewer since we have fun. I'm just trying to figure out what you mean by help.
Provide funding
In what?
to install a collection system.
To install, so going into Silver Creek I'm just using that as a hypothetical. Going into Silver Creek with funding and saying, okay, Silver Creek neighborhood, we're putting sewer in here and you don't have to do anything about it except join when you're ready.
They wouldn't be forced to hook up necessarily, but we would at least have the collection system in place, which is the main cost of providing sewer treatment. You've got to convey it.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I'm just trying to understand what the logic is behind that as far as you get the system in there. You've got your collection system set and ready. And then you just sit and wait. We just sit and wait essentially for people to join when they're ready to join. Is that?
We've had some people ask for that,
Mhm,
and we've had others say that I'd like to develop my property and they can't
mhm,
because they can't accommodate it,
mhm,
because they have drain fields that are taking up part of their property.
mhm.
So there is some need that's been expressed to us. And as far as the science goes, I would be happy to provide you with that because
Thank you.
the Environmental Protection Agency has tons.
Oh, I know. I've read about 300 and some odd page document that outlines pros and cons of centralized and decentralized systems. And I would say there's a healthy argument for decentralized systems, especially in rural communities, with respect to costs to the city, with respect to cost to homeowners, and with respect to spreading toxic effluent throughout the ground area that wasn't normally there, that would otherwise be contained on the property itself. So yes, there is a lot of conversations that we can have on the science on that. I'm just wondering if that was funded or founded on that. So I think when I hear the other piece that you do have some interest, and that's probably so, have you talked to the entire community yet to say, okay, if 5 people or 1 person actually wants sewer coming into your neighborhood, we're going to make that happen with this funding, and then thereby forcing folks to actually have to join the sewer at a later date. Is that something that's been contemplated in this?
Mr. Miller, if I could. Step in, this has been a conversation certainly with me, and I know council's been involved in it, but certainly with the administrator. So I want to just emphasize, this is not to force a sewer system. This is saying we've just built a $30+ million sewer treatment plant, part of which was with the capacity that would allow existing neighborhoods that are on septic to convert. There was Mr. Rigos a number of years ago had quite a bit of interest out of the Silver Creek neighborhood that you mentioned. He gets regular input and inquiries around this. And generally that ends when the cost to convert is discussed. This is our interest in looking for ways to offset the cost for those property owners so that they would be able to connect. Many who want to connect, but do not have the wherewithal to do so. Not an effort to force anyone on. So I just want to be sure we're clear about that.
I do, and that's my clarifying question, because what I'm seeing is a different thing being pushed in motion, which would end us up in a situation of forcing people to do something, especially with other ordinances that we have with respect to when the purpose is, or when you must tie into sewer and so forth. So thank you. I just wanted to get that on the record and clarify my concerns about what we were going to do with those funding.
Thank you.
And I did have another question.
Go ahead.
And then am I to understand, Mr. Miller, as we come up with some other legislative agendas, this is not one and done. We can just come to you and say, hey, have another idea. And there's no deadline on this.
yeah.
That's correct, right?
Send them to me.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
SAP.
Well, let's be clear about that. This is a request from SCA
Right.
for the city's formal legislative agenda. So that's why we are trying to get this decision today. That doesn't mean we can't always go back and work on something else. Yeah, Mr. Rosen.
Mark, you might be the one for this. I don't have the policy in front of me, but city policy regarding mandatory hookup to sewer when it runs within a certain distance of your property. Can you just clarify or just refresh my memory on our current city policy and how that might?
Yeah, and also to go back and kind of add on to Brendan's question about Silver Creek. We did have a town hall back in 2016, 15, 16, somewhere around that area. In response to a lot of Silver Creek residents, there's about 300 homes in Silver Creek and most of them don't have sewer. And there was about 30% of the property owners were interested in sewer or being able to at least have it there. So that tells me there's 90 homes and I do field those calls once every month or so. To answer your question, I believe it's 150 feet away. So if you're within 150 feet of a sewer main, then you have to connect. If you want to build a home, or if you want to add bedrooms or bathrooms, or if somebody wants to, many people want to build an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit now. And on half-acre lots, that's often impossible because the septic drain field and the reserve area takes up so much of their backyards or front yards, they can't build that accessory dwelling unit. So that it would be nice to have.
Okay, and just to clarify, you have a working septic system. You live in, let's say, Silver Creek. There's a line 90 feet away. What is your requirement?
Nothing. They don't have to connect until they demolish the home.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the part.
So this is different than a ULID, which a ULID was essentially a forced payment. This is, hey, we got a sewer line there. It's much better having it there than not having it there. So this seems to be, to me, a win.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that last part.
Thank you. And Mr. Godhelp.
Yeah, Brendan hit on part of mine, but I first applaud that we're early to this. Is this specifically to send to the Sound Cities Associations? Because many of our partners, usually when we have these legislative agendas, we give input. So here we are at the end of October, and I know at least Eastside Fire and Rescue will be taking this on in November, and I would think that some of their agenda items legislative would go on ours, and I don't know if our police, but so that's my question. Will we be having one specific, or is this specific to just say SCA?
Mr. Miller, you'd have to respond to what date they had asked us to respond by. I do recall that we appended with Eastside Fire and Rescue and said, hey, we support these two last year.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that there's time, because I think it comes as a surprise, because typically we see this next month. And usually we have a bunch of items that we add to it. So my concern is this is not an exhaustive list of what I would think we would be putting forward.
It'll be done when you're done with it. If we don't get there, we wanted to get this in front of you tonight to have this conversation. If we don't want to approve a list tonight, that's fine with me.
Approve a list. So I'm fine moving forward with this list tonight, but I just want to make sure it doesn't close the door. That was my.
Mr. Miller, what's the ask of SCA?
I've received questions from the SCA representative who is collating all this from the cities. And I think we'd have some time to do it, but I don't know how much time. And they did require that, of course, this is approved by the council, and that's why it's in front of you, right?
May I suggest we at least bring this to a vote and advance it forward if it passes? If a similar motion were to come before this council in the future, we could have that conversation.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? I know it's a little convoluted here. I think we'll move to public comment and then we'll come back, and I want to be sure we're clear on what we're talking about this evening, since there were two items mentioned, the behavioral health and public safety that aren't listed in the motion. So with that, we'll move to public comment. If you have any comments on this item, please move to the podium. And if you're online, please indicate in the chat box. 3 minutes.
Sure, I
Name
know
it.
the drill. Mike Thomas, 1231 La Forest. Again, same thanks to the council of people that reached out to me. AB 23, 125, and 126 are obviously linked. And, given the earlier discussion that, the facility might not happen for a couple of years, seems to me like you should yank item 4, which is funding, the lobbying for the funding for the National Guard water infrastructure. Again, I feel it's inappropriate for our community. I've read the Interbay Washington Department of Commerce military relocation report, and it has some interesting items in there. Namely, that the federal government is going to bear 75 to 100% of the cost of this and this thing. This seems to be really a waste of state of Washington tax dollars when the federal government is going to pay for it. Development should pay for this, not state taxpayers. This is an inefficient, what do I call it? There's no conservation of state tax dollars. It's a wasteful use of state tax dollars when the feds bear the majority of the cost. And you can read the Interbay military relocation report that's in the item I mailed to you. The other thing is really lack of clarity around AB 23-125, which is the $13.6 million that seems to now not be necessary for a couple of years. So it's just, to me, just seems quite odd that you're moving ahead with item 4, and maybe you should perhaps postpone it or even remove it. And again, I feel it's controversial because y'all just told the state that $3 million solved this problem. Now you need 13.6. Where's your credibility? So that, to me, is a real issue. On item 5, actually, I know quite a bit about septics. I have one, and I've looked at these things. You desperately need reform. A conversion is quite expensive. Neighborhoods don't have them. It's about the availability, not just 150 feet. It has to be feasible. I believe the limit is 20% of the assessed value of the home. This is totally regressive. You have $1 million home, you're expecting a homeowner to front $200,000 of the you have people that have 200-foot runs. You have sewer that doesn't exist in the street. It's infeasible. You have ULIDs. I mean, these things can run quite expensive. You're ripping up roads. And let's not forget stormwater. The second you start ripping up roads, you suddenly need to address stormwater code, which, to me, you only have a decant facility. All these things are really adding up. I think you desperately need reform, but I do laud an effort to try to get people to pay for it. But returning to the National Guard, I would really hope that you yank this item or postpone it. To me, it just seems to be just inappropriate at this time. It's tied to that facility that I think, frankly, is not appropriate for our city. It's certainly read that Interbay military relocation report and Google it, read it for yourself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jean Buckner, 46226 Southeast 139th Place, North Bend. I would like to reiterate essentially what Michael said about removing the funding for the lobbyists to go to the state legislature now on this question of National Guard infrastructure. I think it's inappropriate at this time. I'd also like to talk about sewer for a minute. When we moved from our pump to the sewage system in North Bend, it cost us $13,000. So even though the line was right in front of our house, it still took us $13,000 to get it to the house. Personally, I wish we had not done that, because our sewer rates, we're paying $125 a month. We're not even getting water from North Bend, just sewer, and no real storm treatment, because our neighborhood has these ditches in the front yard and everything's taken care of by the neighborhood and some swales that King County put in. So I'm not sure about this plan, especially given the fact that the sewer treatment plant has still 17 leaks to my knowledge. Now, that might be changed, but my understanding is that these leaks have been covered with a certain type of epoxy, which is not state of the art. It's not how leaks should be handled. And so we're asking for more sewage on top of what we have, and we're not able to effectively contain that in sound tanks. Don't get it. Don't understand it. Think you guys need to take a second look at this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here in chambers? Anyone online?
No one at this time.
All right. Let's see, this one came directly from the administration. I think I would like to ask the Mayor Pro Tem if she would introduce the motion so we get that on the table.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Motion to approve AB 23-126, confirming the North Bend City Council recommended 2024 legislative agenda to the Sound Cities Association.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Godhelp. Now I think the question would be here, I think appropriate question is if council is inclined, I think we need a motion to add behavioral health and police safety as stated by AWC to this list.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second. So at this time, then I'll ask if there's any discussion about the amendment.
I would like to talk about item number 4, the Water Infrastructure Fund.
I'm sorry, I was just asking about the amendment first.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's okay. About the amendment, if no questions, commentary about the amendment, I'll ask for a vote just on the amendment to add behavioral health and public safety per AWC. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. So consider the overall motion amended to add those two items. Now back to the main motion. Ms. Colon, would you like to speak to the motion?
Number 4, the Water Infrastructure for the Army Readiness Center. If we are not moving forward within the next 2 years or more, do we need to go ahead and have this through SCA and legislative priorities?
The advanced planning to get the water infrastructure in requires several years of, lobbying and design, et cetera. So what we're trying to do is we've assessed the existing water facilities that Salal has. And although they could serve a portion of the area without the addition of a reservoir and a booster station, which is about half of the $7 million cost, we cannot serve the entire area. So some of our economic development objectives for having the industrial area develop, whether it's the Army or anything else, will require adequate water service to the area. And what we're trying to do is to make sure, as you acted on your 6-year CIP, that we're planning in advance, that we're finding other people's money to pay for it, and that we can serve that area for the ultimate development of all of the industrial properties, not just the Army. And if the Army goes away, it's still an industrial piece that is eligible in the general plan for development.
You? Any other comments, questions? Mr. Rosen, you got
Yep.
tag team, you guys got to let me know.
There you go.
All right.
Number 5, we'll come back to that. I personally would like to see that removed tonight. Simply put, we talk about sewer collection in areas with septic, in addition to changing obviously the type of sewer system. It also opens up neighborhoods to development. And I know there was a lot of conversation during the last round of discussion where we had the open houses and 70% of the folks in, for instance, Silver Creek didn't want sewer. But one of the things they also didn't want was development. You run sewer lines through Silver Creek, you're going to see a lot of development potentially. I believe we're 4 per acre out there, and correct me if I'm wrong. And some of it might be higher as it gets closer to the city, but I'm not to the downtown core, that I can't be certain of. But that will change that neighborhood radically. And I think that is worthy of a conversation at a minimum, not just to push this through tonight, because next thing you know, we get a grant and we're sitting here debating, well, we got the grant, we got to move forward with it. We asked for the grant and, you know, SCA went to bat for us. And if we don't take the grant, well, they'll never give us another grant. Let's not go down that road unless we're prepared to go. And I'm not saying that the rest of this council may be fine with that, but this at a minimum requires a lengthy conversation, especially since we've had a conversation with the public and they've said overwhelmingly 70%, at least in Silver, they didn't want this. So before we start asking for money and funds, let's make sure we're speaking for the public. So I'll let the rest of the council members speak, and then I'd like to make an amendment.
Ms. Cullen.
I do not want to see number 5 go away. I think providing current infrastructure is important moving forward in the future. And it sounds like you do not have to hook up if you do not want to, but if you want to, and if it was me, I would. It gives me an opportunity to do so. So I don't think if it's available, you can. If it's available, you can't, which is, I think, what you're wanting. And I don't think that's fair moving forward into the future and for future citizens or future anybody. When we're all dead, some other people might want that. That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Elwood, I'm sure you're.
Well, when we're dead, let those people decide. And the technology will be far greater than what we have today, so maybe it won't cost a homeowner hundreds of thousands of dollars to tie into it. I think Mr. Rosen's point is the other key salient point here tonight, which is sewer expansion is residential expansion, residential growth, development. That's what that's all about. I do understand that there are a handful of folks here and there that live in a septic environment that would like to have sewer. I do get that. But for me, the caution here is that this is greenlighting further residential growth and development. The number one issue facing our community right now is an excessive rapid residential growth. That's what this is. It paves the way for that. So I would also echo Council Members Rosen's sentiments that we need to pull that one off for now. And we need to have a deeper discussion on that because we do have more than just Silver Creek that's on septic. There are quite a few neighborhoods that are on septic. And once that sewer goes in there, those particular neighborhoods would be changed forever. I mean, we'd be seeing more sea of sameness, if you will, in those. And so our rural character and a rural charm would start to just disappear, especially if more ADUs are added onto it. There's just a whole mess of things. So I think this is a bigger strategic vision discussion that we need to have next year when we're coming back to our retreat, when we're going to align on what the city's vision is. What is it that the new council wants to do going forward? So this particular item definitely promotes more residential growth and development. So therefore, I would recommend it be removed from the particular legislative priority list. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gotthel.
I'm gonna be the contrarian on this one. I understand, and what I think we ought to do is take this back and push this off for 30 days, because I think there's a lot of understanding, a lot of information here that's not here. One of the things we did talk about, and there are certain areas where we talked about wanting affordable housing. In some of those areas that we say we want affordable housing, in order for those affordable housing, there would need to be sewer. So I'd like to get a better understanding of what we're asking here, what that is. There's a lot of, speculation as to what this is and what we're trying to, lobby. So instead of pulling it off, I think I'd rather see us push this off for 30 days, bring the other items that we want to, and really get an understanding of what the administration is talking about here. I take a look at these two lines and I can read it the way you guys can read it, or I can read it another way. And I'm getting concerned that we're over reading into what this is. So I'd rather see a motion to table this for 30 days, bring more clarity back to work study in the next 30 days, and then add additional things at that point. So that would be my preferred motion, not to remove that item, because I think we owe it to the administration and we owe it to the public to understand what this is that we're lobbying for.
Thank you. Mr. Jocelyn.
I appreciate you're not moving to table, so we continue to talk about it. It's a little bit of a chicken and egg question. I'm not hearing that much disagreement. I'm hearing a requirement, or interest in more information. I think the city does have, the city, has built a sewer treatment plant. There is, it does need to be paid for, and that, that was done with intention and with a plan that over time, people who are on septic would eventually move to sewer, such that, yes, that, you don't do these things in a vacuum. You do them with a long-term strategy is how it is you're going to pay for it. We've in fact engaged a professional consulting firm to help us look at exactly those questions over time going forward. And that's us as a council doing our due diligence. I did want to point out in the recent community survey, question 25 came back. 170 people said, I am currently connected to city sewer, 50% of respondents. 35 people, or 10% of respondents, said, I am currently on septic and want to be connected to city sewer. 126 people, or 37%, said, I am currently on septic and do not want to be connected to city sewer. And 8 people, or 2.5%, were unaware if they were on sewer or a septic system.
Slight confusion, perhaps. So Council, I'm hearing two possible amendments here. I'm hearing Mr. Rosen's interest in possibly an amendment to remove item 5 as it's listed. I'm sorry, Mary, I didn't see your hand.
Well, yes, I do have a comment, and I really appreciate what Heather said, spoke to. I feel that that's a possibility here. I feel like Alan's choice of another 30 days feels like the right fit to just get a little bit more of this fleshed out. That would be where I'm comfort zone is.
Thank you, because that's where I was going to go with this other motion that I think I was hearing. I'm going to suggest, I'm going to put some words in Mr. Godhelf, because I'm not going to use the word that he did. I think what he was suggesting was to turn this into a first reading and bringing it back on the 21st as a second reading. Is that what I was hearing?
So moved, and I'll take your friendly change to what I said.
But again, yeah, whatever. I'm just purely saying I'm hearing two different things. I'm not suggesting what the motion is. Point of order for Mr. Elwood.
First reading and then come back to second, or move to postpone. I think it's a move to postpone. So I'm hearing to give us some guidance here on the benefits of one, or if they're listening.
Because it's only a motion, council member, I think it's appropriate to do either path. So you can do a motion to table to a date certain. So motion to table for 30 days or as soon thereafter the council meeting is set. Or you can convert this into a motion for a first reading of the agenda bill with a second reading to follow.
What would be the difference? Because one of the things I would like to add to that is to make sure that it is brought before this body, either in a work study or some other, so they can ask clarifying questions to understand truly what's being presented here. So what would be better in that scenario, I guess, is can you either way you could remand it to work study from the first reading or tabling it?
And I appreciate that clarification, council member. Adding the location, if you will, or the venue for what happens next is important. So previously what was articulated as a motion just to postpone for further discussion. So then I would encourage a motion to, if that's the intent, motion to table for a certain period of time and whatever that venue is that the council is seeking.
And I will offer a motion to table this, to move to a work study within the next 30 days to bring it back in 30 days. I mean, I don't think this is going to add that much to any of the work studies we've got going forward.
It's council's pleasure. It's only hours.
We all work those hours. And
So I believe I'm hearing a motion to table to what?
to the work, to a work study, I guess.
Point of information, you have, well, to a date certain would be to a date when council could actually act to advance it forward. I don't think you can table to a committee meeting unless.
Okay, so let's table it for 30 days and remand it to a work study. Does that work?
Have to ask the lawyer about that one. That one's getting above my pay grade.
Have a work study on.
Got a very packed work study agenda.
Okay, if I may add something, if we're so concerned about the time frame of these things, then get us in the loop earlier so that we're not up against the wall like this. So you're chastising your counsel for that, it feels like. And I'm just saying.
I'm not intending to do that because I will absolutely acknowledge that we felt put against the wall, and that's why we brought it to you, was that we were getting asked by SCA and we weren't prepared either. So,
Is my motion acceptable to the
hearing a
parliamentary?
suggested motion, but I want to make sure that we've got that it's a one that works.
For clarification, will you please repeat your motion? I do follow, but Councilmember Jocelyn has a good point of clarification that I think you identified. So if you'll repeat your motion.
Okay, my motion is to table this till in 30 days for the next council meeting within 30 days, remand it to, what'd you say the next work study is? October 24th, so we can discuss it to bring it back in 30 days.
And that would be an appropriate motion. I would just identify the agenda bill is 23-126 for that motion.
Agreed. Or do you need me to read it again?
Okay. All right. So the emotion that I have is to table AB 23-126 for 30 days and to remand it to the October 24th work study.
Mayor, may I make one point of clarification? I apologize. After looking at the calendar, it will be more than 30 days for your motion before it can come back to the city council meeting. I believe it's November 21st.
Okay, so let's change it to move the motion to table this motion to, what was the date of the next one? For the council meeting?
November 21st.
November 21st, and remand it to the October 24th work study. That was a mouthful.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any further comment?
Yes.
Mr. Over.
I appreciate that your back was up against the wall and that's why this is before us tonight. I do. But I hope that you appreciate that some of these topics that are sensitive, it's hard for us to debate this in a council forum without all the information where we can actually have this good dialogue. So I hope that you can respect that pushing it, postponing it is just a point for us to get together, to talk with you, to get some of these details hashed out. So therefore, when we come back to council, we can make a confident decision at that point. So I just want to, it's not attacking you. I'm just.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Agreement.
Thank you.
Very appropriate.
Do we not have a council meeting on November 7th?
We do. That wasn't the motion.
Oh, sorry.
We could take it, let's stick the motion. Let's not keep changing it.
All right. All right. So switch screens again. So the motion is to table AB 23-126 to the November 21st council meeting and remand it in the meantime to the October 24th work study. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. It is unanimous. That was a rough one to work through. All right. And thankfully, that was the last item on the agenda. Regular agenda. We'll move to Mayor, Council, Administrator concerns and initiatives. Mr. Rosen.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Gotthealth.
Yeah, since there was a comment about wildfire, I would ask that those people that are concerned to get in touch with Eastside Fire and Rescue. They have a program that will come out to your property, take a look at your property, and make advice on how to make your property safe for wildfire. And I think we've got a lot of people interested in that, so I'm bringing that up again. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. Ms. Miller,
Doesn't happen often, but I have nothing to say tonight.
Mr. Elwood.
Thank you, Your Honor. First of all, I want to extend another round of gratitude to our brave officers out there and for saving lives, literally. So thank you very much. Appreciate your service and appreciate what you do for our community. The second one, I would like to comment on some water testimony that was here tonight about not being able to water gardens, not being able to water plants and so forth. And I would encourage you to speak to Mr. Regos at a later date to really talk about the spirit of the water conservation ordinance. As I understand it, nobody's been fined to date. People can use water. It's an educational tool. And what we have seen is it's working. People are using less water. There's a whole thing here. And when I hear testimony that it's this draconian experience and so forth, I just wish that you would talk a little bit more with Mr. Regos and what the spirit of this is and what the successes are that we are currently having with respect to water conservation ordinances. Third thing is something a little bit more lighthearted. Valley Center Stage has a production of Blythe Spirit, so no coward play. It's a ghostly comedy. This is the second weekend, I believe, with one more weekend coming up. There's also Night on the Living Dead stage reading coming up. Hoping that people show up in zombie costumes or makeup. I also understand Volition is sponsoring Night of the Living Dead at North Bend Theater downtown. I believe that's this evening. So jam out there now if you look zombie-like, like I feel. So there's a lot of cool art stuff happening. Please check out the local scene. There's some really good fall entertainment our way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jocelyn.
Let's see. Yeah, I certainly am aware I serve on two bodies and am elected to two offices locally. I am glad to be in conversation with anyone who cares to reach out to me and have that conversation. I'm not breaking any laws to my knowledge. I've been in conversation with the city attorney and appreciate everyone's support in doing what I think is public service to our community, and I'm pleased to be able to serve. I did want to comment on the Community and Economic Development Committee, which I think is a policy body, and it's, in my opinion, not the purview of the CED to promote individual businesses, however worthy, absent explicit policy matters or concerns that would come before this elected body. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Coleman.
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, anything for the administration?
I'm going to stick with nothing tonight too. Thank you.
All right. I've just got a few items here. The city is seeking applicants to fill a council position, number 4. Applicants must be U.S. citizens, at least 18 years of age, registered voters, and have lived within the city limits of North Bend at least 1 year prior to the date of appointment. If you are interested in submitting an application, please visit the news and highlights section of the city website or contact the city clerk. Completed applications must be received by 4 p.m. November 9th. City is also seeking applicants for a vacancy on the Parks Commission. Application packets and information regarding the position are also available on the city website. Deadline for that application is November 3rd. On Saturday, October 21st, Puget Sound Energy will be replacing a transmission pole on Stilson Avenue Southeast, just south of Cedar Falls Way. Stilson Avenue will be temporarily closed from Cedar Falls Way to Southeast 134th Street between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. as crews replace the pole and perform tree trimming in the surrounding area. Drivers can expect to see clearly displayed detour signage in the area, see a detour map on the website, and local access to this closed section of the road will be provided. And with that, I want to point out to council, we will be adjourning to executive session to discuss property acquisition pursuant to RCW 42.30.110(1)B. No action will take place following this session. We expect to be 30 minutes. And with that, we will close the recording. Thank you. Council, I'll see you in adjournment.